What's up, everybody? I'm Whooping Long COVID. Today we're going to talk about ivermectin. And ivermectin, obviously, a lot of controversy surrounding this and a lot of hype kind of early on in the days of COVID. I'm not going to get too deep into what it is because I think that's been done to death. I'm just going to talk a little bit at a high level, what my experience has been with it and why I'm doing it. But, just to set some context, ivermectin is an anti-parasitic drug that's been used for forever. Matter of fact, I have a friend who was in Doctors Without Borders or Peace Corps, something like 15 years ago, where she used to go overseas to poor, developing economies, and they would always bring ivermectin and treat everybody with it because it kills, parasites and worms. It doesn't really help against viruses. But early on, there was some studies, some COVID studies that were done under kind of shoddy scientific principles that seemed to indicate that ivermectin might have some benefit in fighting the COVID infection itself. And Rogan took it and talked about it on his podcast and stuff. And I think that helped hype it up. As we got smarter about it, we looked at it and did better studies with better science. It did show no discernible effect on fighting COVID, and certainly paled in comparison to things like Paxlovid. And the other issue with it is that it's also used for deworming animals. And so early days, people couldn't get human prescriptions for it because it wasn't an FDA approved drug for COVID. And so they would go get horse medicine and then take horse medicine, and the dosages are all different, and also the you're not quite as sure about the medical quality of it if you're taking horse stuff. So that's why it kind of created this big frenzy. Now, fast forward to today, we still know that it doesn't really have an impact on viruses, but there is some thinking that it could show some benefits for long COVID. I went and looked at the science on it. It doesn't necessarily seem like it's really substantiated, but it also doesn't really seem like it's gonna hurt you either. It could cause GI problems. Well, guess what? I already had my colon removed, so I'm pretty full up on GI problems already. So for me, it seemed like there wasn't necessarily a lot of downside to giving it a go. And one of my doctors that's a specialist in long COVID did say that they have had some success with it with some of their patients. Now, I don't know if that's a placebo effect. I don't know if it's doing something. I don't know if it's, when you're taking other meds at the same time like I am and you see improvement, is it related to one medicine or the other? I don't know. And that is the downside of the approach that I'm taking, is it's harder for me to put a pin in this thing is doing X, Y, or Z. But my experience with ivermectin is as follows. So I've been on it now for about 2 months. I did go through a doctor, so I have a human prescription, not a horse prescription. I started with a 2-week loading cycle of 60 milligrams a day. And then after 2 weeks, I went down to 30 milligrams a day. And I take it every day. After 2 months of being on it, my experience has been that I have noticed that I'm having fewer bad days than I used to. So I historically was bedridden, I don't know, let's call it 60 to 75% of the time. 4 or 5 days a week, I'm spending all day in bed. Now that number has decreased to maybe like between 2 and 4, which is great. Is it related to the ivermectin or not? I don't know. I have not really experienced much of the GI side effects, and I don't know if that's related to the fact that I don't have a colon, so there's not much to fuck up anymore, or whether or not that's just not a side effect that I am troubled with as it relates to ivermectin. But anyway, point of all this is I'm on it. I intend to stay on it for at least another month, and then my plan is to try to start removing drugs from my normal cocktail of drugs every morning, and then see what happens when I take something off. as opposed to the other way around, which is, you keep adding things and see what happens. I'm hitting it with everything all at once. And then my plan is after another 30 days, like I said, to start backing stuff off. So that's ivermectin. Do your research on it. Talk to your doctor. And if it seems like it makes sense to give it a go, give it a go. See you guys later.